We're I think about 8,000 effective in this hand.
Okay, so 8,000 effective. Okay.
And I open on the button with Jack of Hearts, and then I think one of the Black Jack. It's not relevant to
I'll
the
put
hand.
Jack of Hearts, Jack of Clubs. Okay.
Yeah, and I open to 60,
Mm-hmm.
and then the 20 big blind, who's a older live Asian pro who's, I mean, I think I saw him in the tent at Hawaiian Gardens, so that gives you an idea of how long back he's been playing live. And I think he only plays live. He defends in the straddle.
So but he's not like a for-profit player or anything, right?
I think he probably is, but I think he's that kind of live player who's probably not doing a ton of studying. He's just
Right.
got good sort of fundamentals and doesn't get bored. And I suspect he's winning money. I don't think he's opening up the solver when he gets home and really, doing a lot of work on his game.
And how much did you raise to? I'm sorry, did you say 60?
I made it 60,
Okay, and he calls. So Straddle calls.
and
No,
he
it's just
defends and tries. And
this is pretty cool to see this deep because this is kind of reminds me of Texas setup, right? Like we were playing 25, 50, 100, sometimes just 25, 50, and everyone had 20K, or we'll play like 510 on these live streams. Everyone will have like 10K, and it's just interesting to see sometimes some of the vloggers come in and they expect to play like a actual 2-5 or 510 game, and all of a sudden like they're playing the equivalent of like a 50-100 game. I think that's what happened to Jeff Boski last week on Saturday. So you guys are pretty deep. So you make it 60 straddle calls and your heads up, so it's like 130. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the flop comes Ace of Hearts, King of Hearts, and then an offsuit five. I think it was the five of clubs.
All right, so the flop is Ace of Hearts, King of Hearts, Five of Clubs. Okay.
And he checks to me, and
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, I'd be really interested in what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah.
Is I think in live poker, if we play mixed strategies, a lot of players who don't put you in a very strong camp of, oh, he can never have these kind of hands. He can
Mm-hmm.
only have, he's a very capped range. Whereas if you play online a lot, obviously there's a lot more mixing, a lot more different sizes, and you can have strong hands in a lot of different lines.
Yeah.
So I don't think Pocket Jacks really wants to bet
Mm-hmm.
on this board
Mm-hmm.
particularly, but I just decided to go with a sort of simplistic range, just under one third pot bet sizing. And I just bet $40 to kind of allow myself to get to the turn in a line I'm very familiar with a lot of small betting, and also not to give him, I guess, like freedom or the idea that he can win this hand in multiple ways.
Well, I mean, so yeah, I mean, I can get so you're saying a mixed strategy just so that you can sometimes have some hands that maybe some people might not
Right.
necessarily expect
So
you to
if I
have.
was playing this hand online, I would most likely, if I was playing, 1 or 2K, I would have an overbet strategy on an Ace King X board. And
From the button though, 3xing and then someone getting a price in the straw. I mean, I would tend to think
well,
that.
I certainly wouldn't be 3xing in an online game.
Right, right.
I would be 2.25xing, and then I still have some big bets. Yeah.
I mean, I guess my point is that I can see this in a tighter configuration that you would take like a range bet. I mean, my thoughts on this though is that the wider you are, the more checking you're supposed to be doing in a given situation when the configuration is quite wide and this is just a single raise pot and a defend. So, yeah, I mean, I think that you certainly have a bunch of checkbacks here and maybe some medium strength checkbacks. And so jacks might be sort of in that kind of in that range. It's also though interesting too as we line this up. If you always think that the straddle is going to be three betting off ace king, aces, and kings, you might turn your hand into a bluff and try to get him off of like king x. You also have jacks with the jack of hearts here too. You wouldn't think that you'd turn like jacks into a bluff here, but who knows if you could get somebody to fold off like ace three off or like king 10 or some shit like that, you know?
100%. I think that's
Yeah.
partly what led to my betting 40 is it just leaves all the doors open, right? It leaves
Uh,
I can turn this into a bluff. I
yeah.
can get him to fold better. I can bluff hearts. I can
Right.
represent some straights when they come in. I think it just gives me more ways, more vehicles to actually win this hand.
Okay. So you bet 40. Okay.
Yeah. And then something that I wasn't particularly expecting, he check raises to 175.
So that is interesting because, again, if he doesn't have aces and he doesn't have ace king and he doesn't have kings, he probably shouldn't be doing much check raising here, right? Like, I mean, he should probably be calling with like, ace five, king five. I mean, if he wanted to play like a sound game, now I can, if I was playing against another reg that I understood, like I had a hand on Saturday against one of the regulars who's a pro here, Bones, where I turned top two, like it was 10-8. I defended with 10-8 off and in the straddle, like in a late configuration open, and the border came out like 8 deuce 3, and he c-bet pretty large, and I called, and the turn was an offsuit 10, so I turned top two, and he took a large sizing on the turn, so I just check called, right? I mean, like, and then I was just gonna be like, oh, this is a hand, like I'm gonna have to be better than one pair here. He can't just liberally, go nuts on me. And I was thinking about, well, I'm doing this against a good player, but I certainly might take a different line against a bad player. And so if I was your opponent and I was playing you, of course I would check call here with ace five or like king five suited or something like that. But if I was playing against a guy that I'm actually going to get action from with an ace X and win a huge pot, I very well might check raise with those hands.
Yeah, I think as soon as he starts check raising, he's finding flush draw check raises and maybe pocket fives and maybe occasionally the ace five, but he's not putting himself in a position where this is going to go well for him. $7,000 effective, right? Like if a lot of money goes in here, he's going to struggle to have the nuts a lot of the time.
Well, if he's three betting off aces, kings, and ace king all the time, yes, right?
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say he would be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a live player, but he's not
right.
He's not a rock. And I've opened from the button. I think almost all live players who are playing for profit are finding those three bets.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. He uses a 4x sizing. You have jacks with a jack of hearts, so you block those combo flush draw, those Broadway flush draws. But the theory goes you don't want to do a whole lot of bet folding on the flop for, I would say, value, although I guess we could say that this isn't really a value bet by you. And I'm a big proponent of actually bet folding on a lot of live in a lot of live situations on the flop for value. But that's usually when like I might bet kings on like 9, 8, 6 against two people and somebody raises and they just always have like, two pair plus or a set and I just fold. Whereas the theory says you're supposed to take those hands and check call with them. You're not supposed to bet fold for value on the flop, but this is a little bit different. Sounds to me like you got something working in your head here though. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the fact that we are so very deep, and I think that he's going to play his hands not completely face up, but I think I'm going to have a reasonable understanding of what hand what his hand strength is in his own mind based on turns and rivers, and can make maybe slightly better than guesstimate decisions versus his bet sizes on certain runouts. Like obviously on a heart turn, I can make some moves, and I thought potentially I can obviously represent some straights, but I can also, on some pairing cards, I don't think he has almost any boats here, realistically, just given the way they maybe has pocket five. I can put a huge amount of pressure on the right runouts, even though I'm not in love with having the jack of hearts, given that I think I said like flush draws are probably a fair portion of his check raises, and obviously having the jack of hearts really cuts down on those and also gives him probably more nut flush draws, queen X flush draws, which is obviously not ideal if I'm then going to try and represent hearts myself.
Well, and he can also have 5x of hearts here too sometimes, although right. I mean I would say something, but so you call, is that right?
I do. I call with bad intentions, I guess. And I'm not absolutely convinced that this is a great play. It's just, I think live poker is like, there's so much room for creativity, and online, which is what I've been doing for the past 18 months, is so robotic and technical that I'm kind of falling in love with the opportunities that are available when very deep.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're saying that there's so much opportunity for creative when deep. I mean, that's the difference, right? Like you're not playing 100 big blinds.
If we were 2K deep here,
right.
I would be done with this hand at this point.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, that's really what's the difference. I mean, obviously, people are playing the right ranges and doing things probably at far closer to optimal frequencies online, right? So that's why you're saying it's like robotic.
Right.
But the game itself just plays shallower and stuff too. Okay, so you call and the pot's 480, right?
Right, pot's 480, and the turn is the 4 of hearts.
Okay.
And he bets out for $300.
So
And
big blind bets 300 here. So he follows with a like a 60% sizing here.
yeah, so around maybe just under 2/3.
Wow, that is interesting because like what hand like you would think that no non-flush hand would take the sizing on the turn, right?
Right. I think he's run out of bluffs almost already. Would be my sort of like instinct in my head was like, oh, he doesn't have a bluff. Can I make him fold some value hands? Like, can I start to create a bluffing opportunity versus some of his medium value, which I think would be smaller flushes.
What about I can find a couple of bluffs. What about like Queen 10 with the Queen of Hearts or
Yeah, that
Queen
it's
Jack with the
possible.
Queen of Hearts? I'm just trying to think. I mean,
I just I just wasn't that sure that he would find some of these backdoor one, like the sort of blocking naked heart
mm,
check raises on the flop. It's certainly possible, and I think it's why this hand has some problems when I just have jacks with the jack of heart rather than say, for example, queens with the queen of heart.
so you think that he's run out of
So
bluffs, but don't you think though that it's kind of strange that he bets like this though on the heart turn? Like he's not gonna go like this with ace five, and I think it's even debatable if he does this with like 5-5, to be honest with you.
yeah, I kind of agree. I think that he's very, very weighted towards flushes at this point.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, I mean, listen, if he's weighted towards flushes, I mean, then it's just it might be like a pot odds type of thing because I mean, it's 800, 300 for you to call, so you're just getting under 3-1. But if he's got two flushes and then you don't even have the nut flush draw, and you're sort of hoping
Right.
for a fourth heart to come out. And a lot of times, if he sort of had a low flush and a fourth heart comes out, it's kind of hard for him. I mean, it's kind of hard for you to win a big pot. So this one's a little bit in between, unless, again, like maybe you're representing the board pairing here too or something.
I had some plans to try and represent the board pairing and obviously
And
a
maybe win if a
little heart. I
heart were
think
to
I
come
win.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, you can see what I do on the river. Like
So,
I
so,
also
so do you,
thought there was opportunity.
so I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
so
sorry.
do you call the turn here? You just call?
Yeah, I decided to call the turn,
Okay.
and again, I think maybe redlining what is good when it comes to floating with like a creative idea.
Yeah.
I'm could easily be convinced that this is just I've overdone it and I've got too much up my own ass
So,
and I'm making a mistake.
so let me ask you this question. So I assume that the best bluff card for you think in your mind would be an ace?
I think an ace, I think a king would be pretty reasonable.
Uh-huh.
I think a five is actually quite appealing too because I mean I kind of agree with you that I'm not sure pocket fives get taken for this size on the turn, so I
Yeah.
don't expect us to. And I think aces and kings are very obvious hands that I would have and play this way a lot of the time.
So, okay, so the pot is 1080 here. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Yeah, like I probably would just fold the flop and then on the turn, man. I mean, I've been bored in spots like this, but I don't know if I'm gonna pick
Hmm.
this one. To be honest with you, I'd rather have queens with the queen of
Yeah,
hearts here. You know,
I completely agree with you. I had a very winning image too. I know that's like a
yeah,
very somewhat minor adjustment and
yeah.
maybe like slightly subconscious on mine. Just like I check raised a river earlier with a two card straight flush that he had seen. Again, I still think I'm probably overdone it here. It's just I felt like he doesn't know. Like I haven't played live in a long time, so he's definitely not going to remember me as a player, and I'd only just moved to the table. I kind of thought he would think I was fairly straightforward, and I thought,
1080, right?
so river is a six of spades, and he bet 730.
So the river bricks out. You don't get your scare card.
Complete brick.
Okay,
Complete
and
brick.
and he
Yeah.
bets 730.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus,
And
Gethin. I mean, what are you thinking about here? I mean, you didn't get your board pair. You didn't
I
get your
didn't get my
heart.
board pair.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
I mean,
fuck
this guy
this
should
guy.
have a flush here. I mean, put it this way. Like, all right, I'm going to boil it down to like my most. I mean, you can be creative all you want, but he looks like he's got a flush here. And here's the thing, like,
Oh, I think he has a flush.
and here,
I believe
you,
I'm very confident he has
and
a flush.
the other thing too, I will say, is that if he is polar to having polar to having the queen of hearts, like queen 10 with the queen of hearts, queen jack with the queen of hearts, or something, right? With the queen of hearts. And I mean, those would be the two
Hmm.
ones. then your decision is to call or fold. I don't know
Right.
why. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to turn a hand. You don't want to raise or turn a hand into a bluff that is a bluff catcher against a polarized range. Now, again, I mean, I just and the way that this hand has gone off is that it looks like he's got a flush or he's making some sort of play where you have the best hand. It would really, and I don't know if any, because like it just doesn't make any sense for anything that far up higher than jacks to do that. Like he's not going to do this with like king queen with the queen of hearts. You know
Oh,
what I
I agree.
mean?
I think he has a flush.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the only counterpoint I have is that when pots get really big in live poker, particularly with like river raises, people don't think you're bluffing, right?
Yeah. So what did you end up doing?
I made it 2.4K.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan. Not a big fan. And so you made it 2.4K. And that the other thing though too is that he's going to be getting like a pretty good price here, right? The pot's 4,100 and it's 17 for him to call.
hmm Oh, I think it's the most value. I think if I had the Queen of Hearts, I'm again as an exploit, I would probably pick a different size where he doesn't have the nuts. Whereas if I bet 2.4K, like there's a part of me that's thinking I'm going to get jammed on a fair amount here.
Yeah, I mean because if you don't hold that, I mean I was thinking that if you wanted to get him to like start, fold off small flushes and stuff like that, but that you might go larger, but you don't want to put your stack
Right.
at, I mean, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, if he bet three bets fold, but what ended up happening?
He actually ended up folding face up 10-6 of hearts.
He folded 10-6 of hearts to 1,700?
Yes, which
That's
is what
fucking
got my head
crazy.
spinning about the possibilities against some people in live poker. Like I think I didn't play this hand well,
Wow,
but
that's.
it gave me so much food for thought in what can we get away with
I got to
against
give you some
certain
advice.
players.
Let me give you some advice, Gethin. I wouldn't take too
Please.
much food from thought from this hand because you're not going to get guys to
Okay.
fold the 10 hearts, 6 of hearts to 2,400. I'm sorry. I don't know. I mean, I believe you. I'm just saying that I think it could be an outlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it absolutely could be.
I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel and check out the coupon code in the description to try out the Crush Live Poker training site for free.